Hello, it is Rooted to Thrive time again. Thank you all for joining us on Rooted to Thrive Conversations to Elevate Our Humanity podcast. I'm your host, Rochelle Peterson-Ansari, aka Professor P. Now, today we have Dr. Cherie Crosby-Weeks, professor, program director of a teacher ed program, and she's also a chair of the Behavioral Sciences and Education Cluster at Manor College here in the greater Philadelphia area. Now, in addition to that, she is an expert in instructional design and she is passionate about inspiring leadership development among teachers. Now, Cherie and I met through an organization called the Pennsylvania Educator Diversity Consortium about 4 years ago, I believe. And I always was wanted to really get to know her. Of course, she's in my area, but everything she seemed to say, right? We've known each other through Zoom boxes, really, right? Because in 2020,
Yes, yeah.
right? It was actually when the organization started in 2019 with a different name. But we were an initiative in 2019 and became an official organization, but really have met through Zoom, right? Online all this time. And so we have not had the pleasure of being in person, but I have felt like whenever Dr. Crosby-Weeks speaks, something resonates for me. And so I just had to invite her to this podcast as we are trying to help people just up level, like uphold our human dignity, our own, as well as other people's, right? So today, Dr. Crosby, I was going to say Cherie, but with Cherie is going to be talking about a number of things, but maybe a little more personal than through her expertise. So Cherie, thank you for joining me. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Today I'm chiming in from Virginia because my husband lives here and I live in Pennsylvania.
Wonderful. Yes. And so this is really going to be a powerful conversation for this season. We're going to be talking about your transitions. We're going to be talking about how you maintain your true self throughout transitions in life and career, and how that helps us elevate our humanity. So before we do that, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm not a native of Pennsylvania. I was born in Ohio and I've lived all over the US. So primarily my elementary school years were in California. Then we moved to Michigan during my middle school years. And then I landed in Pennsylvania towards the tail end of my middle school years. And I've been here ever since. So 30 plus years in Pennsylvania. And I have always been a person that has been on the move. So as you can, my family has moved a lot. My husband, even before we got married, he has moved all over the US. So I'm used to having to like reset constantly,
Mhm.
just because of those situations. So,
Mhm. Okay,
yeah.
so you've moved around a lot. We know that you're in a long-term committed relationship.
And
How-
I could tell you my journey from why I became an educator. So when I was at Wissahickon High School in
Mhm.
1991, my last semester of school, they had this thing called Social Lab, and you could go and you would finish out whatever high school credit to do this intern. So initially, I had thought about doing being a psychologist. My mother was bipolar, and so I had a history of up to that point of having to deal with my mom being sick.
Mhm.
And so I thought that'd be a really cool thing to do. So I go to for an interview at Norristown State Hospital, and we're kind of lost in the building. I forget which building we were in. And we run up on this door. It's like this big, huge metal door, and it's got like a little sign underneath that says, under a window that says, enter at your own risk. So I'm thinking, I don't know. And like in a horror story, when somebody turns their head and they're going like this really fast. So the person pops their head in the window and starts shaking their head. So I was like, nah, I think I'll do kindergarten. And so I had been leaning also towards education because I'd always been a person when I was a kid helping other kids, learn their ABCs and all that good stuff. And playing school was a big, big part of my life when I lived in California. Would explain a lot why I am the way I am now, directly connected to that. And so I decided to do that. And then I went to Kutztown University for my undergrad to get certified in elementary and early childhood education.
Okay, excellent, excellent. You said you saw the person.
Yeah. It was like, no. And I already knew that, like I knew that was a possibility going to the like Norristown State Hospital, one of the only state hospitals like in the Pennsylvania. But it was like you didn't think it was gonna happen.
The
So
reality hit,
yeah,
right? It was like something
yeah,
that was out there, but then
yeah,
when you actually began a journey in
yeah.
real life,
Yes, yes,
it helped you
yes.
understand. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we both worked with young people for years, right?
Yeah.
I worked with them outside of the classroom for like 20 years and then went
Mhm.
into the classroom. But I'll tell you, so with talking to college students all the time, I really encourage people to do internships because it's like
Oh.
you just don't know.
Well, what happens for a lot of students is that if they don't have an internship, they go all the way through a program and then they get to the tail end program and they're like, oh, I
Right,
don't like kids, or I don't like teeth, or I
right,
don't like to get my hands dirty. And it's
right,
like, but that's the job,
right.
So
That's right.
you got to learn that pretty early on.
Yes, I was fortunate to figure out that going in bio pre-med that I wasn't coming out that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to be an OBGYN, Cherie, and realized my sophomore year, I was like, I cannot stomach seeing blood
Yeah.
and wanted to
Yeah.
be an OBGYN. That's
Yeah.
a lot of blood
Yeah.
to
And
be
I, and
doing
I I
that.
think that's what a lot of health professions is that people don't realize like there's the glamour side, right? There's the like total horror side, but then
Yeah,
there's the everyday side that like has that cumulative effect on you that if you're not prepared for that, it's gonna weigh you down, you know what I
that's
mean?
right.
Or weather you, as they say.
Weather you. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that term. So, yeah, well, let's start talking about some of those transitions that you've been through where you feel like, yeah, these were pivotal moments where
Hmm.
I had to maintain my true self to get through this.
Yeah. I
Or,
think
mhm,
yeah, the first one probably occurred in my late 20s when I realized, I was having a hard time getting into the school districts in Pennsylvania, which a lot of people were having trouble, particularly people of color were having trouble getting into school
mhm,
districts. So I was at a preschool and then I moved on to early intervention and I was working with 3 to 5 year olds. And eventually I started working with doing the program assessment, the IEPs and the MDEs and all those things, as well as being a teacher. So that was like that was my first taste of a teacher leader role kind of
mhm,
thing. And at that point, I realized that, there's a cycle for educators. Some educators, they do the same thing forever. Like they go in and they never leave. But the average probably most educators, I would say, they have like this itch. And it's like, I call it like the 7 year itch, or you can call it the ninth
okay.
inch, ninth inning itch or whatever. So between 7 to 9 years, some people a lot shorter. So you see some people doing 5 years, where you realize that either one or two things, either your job is not what you thought it was,
Mhm,
and it kind of goes against your personal ethics, or or you're not growing in the job. So you have to do one or two things. You can either stick it out. Well, I should say a couple of things. You can either stick it out and be miserable, right? You can either figure out, stick it out and decide on how you can make the change, or you can decide, I'm going to stick it out, but I'm going to do some other things to fulfill what's missing, or you have to leave. So that first big transition, I decided to leave because at the time, there were just some things that kind of went against what I was as an educator and what I thought for children. And then I moved on into Philadelphia. Well, I was still in Philadelphia, but I moved on to my first program in Philadelphia, where I was a program director in West Philly, up near the zoo. And when I was there, there I had a lot of potential to help people and do a lot of great things. But again, I started to get that, I had been there, arrived there, I think it was 2002, and then I left 2006. So that was a quick turnaround. And I decided that I just need a change. But it was like a lateral change. I went to another center, but then I was at a center that was more organized, had, um, you know, more staff, had more structure. And I stayed there from 2006 to 2011. But in 2007 was the time where my boss died in September of that year. I didn't know, but my mother was going to die like 45 days later. So my boss died at the tail end of September, and then my mother went into the hospital early October, and then she was in the hospital for 30 days, and then she was dead. So that whole year of 2007, basically from like February to September, I had to here I am, this program director of a large center, and I have to prepare teachers for this woman's not coming back and she's going to die. And like me, for some people, I think it's hard for them to understand. I'm a realist in certain points. Like I don't sugarcoat. It's not going to be a hopeful situation. Like, let's just tell the truth. And so I think in every job that I've been at, some people can't handle that. Like they don't want to hear the negative or what they perceive as negative. But I'm like, when you've had a life where you have a sick parent, you've moved around a lot, you've had a lot of transition, at some point you have to be very real about what the situation is. And it's okay. We can be still hopeful, but you gotta, So I had to prepare these teachers to hey, she's not coming back. Because I had some teachers that were like, oh, she's gonna beat this. She's gonna beat this cancer. And I was like, mm-mm. And I said, when she dies, we have to teach and grieve at the same time. Like we don't even get the luxury of grieving like the way, you know what I mean? Like it's like the center's not going to shut down for 2 months so you can grieve, And it was the same thing for me. Like when my mom died, I was still helping other people grieve, but I also had a situation where I had to grieve. But I had been preparing for my grief for my mother for a long time. When you have a sick parent who has mental health issues and also has physical issues, there gets to a point in your life where you say, you know what, they're going to have a short life. And I always believed my mom would not live to 60. She died at 57, and it's been 18 years. And so that was the first big transition. So after that, here I had to work with someone who I normally don't work with, right? It was the assistant director became the executive director. We had some friction along that whole time. So from 2007 all the way through to basically 2010, it was always kind of like, you're not an educator, I am educator, just clashing on certain things. So eventually I said, you know what? That's where I decided I'm just going to leave and we're going to plan my exit, which is kind of bold and kind of like you might lose your job today, but I just said, you know what I mean? But I was like, you know what? This isn't working out. Other people were telling me that, there's some potentials and so for other things. So I decided that, maybe program directing at the center level, it was time for me to go. It was just time for me to go do something different. And then someone told me about a job at Manor, moved on to Manor. And I've been at Manor for 14 years. And at Manor, if you work in higher ed, constant change. Like, it's just like, just constant changes.
Yeah.
And so I'm somewhat used to that in life. But now as I get towards, I call my last quarter or my last third of working life and really wanting to enjoy life because I've spent my whole life working and caring for other people and worrying about other people. My tolerance for constant change is starting to shrink.
Okay.
Um, significantly. And it may be because I'm getting close to menopause, or it might just be that, you know what, you've had to deal with change for so long that you would just like some yeah.
I do understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And, excuse me. Although that may be the case for a lot of people, right, who have dealt
Hmm.
with such constant change throughout their lifetime, and that could come at any point.
Any point, any point.
Um, it certainly does, I think, come with aging. I heard of a
Hmm.
study recently that we're actually happier as we get, like, people are reporting being happier after they are, when they're older, like over
Hmm.
50 and then over
Yeah.
60 and over 70. And it's probably because people say, yeah, enough is enough. I'm going to do me.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other
Right.
thing is what do you have to lose, right? Because a lot of people die between 50 and 70. We've seen that recently, where it's a lot, you see all these people at 50 dying for various reasons. And then you see a
Right.
lot of people just before 80 dying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, if you can survive 50 through 70, you'll probably
Hmm.
live to 90, right? But that requires that shift where you just have to be like, you know what? Been there, done that, not
Right.
doing it anymore.
Right.
Or it's just finding an alternative when stress is just too much and you know it's going to always be because it's always been that way at a certain
Right.
place or certain situation that you
Hmm.
have an offset for that. For so like me, I read a lot. If
Ah.
those that know me on social media, I'm always posting about books and things I read. And people are
Hmm.
like, why do you read so much? And I said, because it actually reduces my stress. But
Yes.
and I read heavy stuff. I'm not even reading like, just something that's just not related to anything. I'm reading stuff that's like I'm learning about something, but and it's not always an easy topic, but it's still relieving my
Hmm.
stress. Because if I can't have that conversation with someone that I want to have that conversation with, I can have it through the book or through a
You can have it
or
through the book.
through the book or through a podcast or engaging in book clubs and things like that.
Hmm. So you can engage in, like, you said, difficult conversations.
Yeah, so like for instance,
Okay.
when 2020 happened, obviously that was a very difficult time for the country, but for some of us it was a little bit more difficult, right? Because that
Uh-huh.
conversation around race had to come up. And for me, talking
Uh-huh.
about race is no big deal because I'm a brown person, I'm Black. I obviously look brown or Black. So I've always had to live in spaces where I was reminded of my race, right? Whether it's through racism, through sexism, through microaggressions, whatever. So for me to talk about those things, it was real easy. Um, but for some people, regardless of their race or gender or religion, they had a very difficult time because they're only dealing with a certain group of people. So they've lived in the same place forever, they've talked to the same people forever. People that tend to move around a lot, have a lot of transition, it's really easier for you to have those conversations because you have to. You know what I mean? And so during that time when I was I had started higher ed and I had been higher ed for like, I guess that at that point it would have been 9 years. And I was thinking like, there's not one place you could talk about this, what's going on. Um, you would expect it to happen, and it didn't happen, right? So for me, as a early childhood educator, someone trained in early childhood, someone trained who took a lot of psychology classes, it really started to bother me, and I started to get angry. Like, why aren't we having this conversation? Why can't people have this conversation?
Yeah.
Why can't people deal with being uneasy? right?
Mm.
And later on, I learned why, right? Because for me, during the pandemic, although I was separated from my husband for a part of the time and my father died during that time, I still didn't feel alone. I found a way to um, entertain myself,
Okay.
right? You know what I mean? And feel
Yes.
and feel human. But for other
Mm.
people, I would see people who lived in a household full of people. I'm so alone. I'm so isolated. And I'm thinking, are you?
Right.
But I had to
Right.
remember, like, I had a different, construct in how I learned to be alone. A lot of people have
Right.
not learned to be alone.
Uh,
So books for me, particularly if you're reading a book where people are sharing first person narratives, although that person isn't talking back to you, you are getting another person's story. Particularly if you listen to an audio book, you get to hear the tone of the story if it's the actual author reading their book. And for me, those conversations of things that I want to hear about, that kind of fills that void and takes away some of that anger. And anger is, in itself is not a bad thing, but you can't let it build up. You know what I
right.
mean? So,
Right. So when you're talking about you're not able to have the conversation, it was like the real physical. I mean, I guess you could just go online, and you did. You started a
oh yeah, yeah.
podcast, right? Like,
Podcast. I started podcasts. I was on book clubs.
mm,
You know what I mean? I will do communities of practice, things like that. So if I don't get
yeah,
something in a setting that I need, I
uh-huh,
will go somewhere else and get that. At this
yes,
point in my career, at 30 years in, for professional development, any person that's been in the field for 30 years, your professional development really needs to be personal. So sometimes an
mm,
institution or a school will give you professional development that they think is going to be meaningful for you, but it might not be.
right,
So you don't get mad because you're not getting what you need. We have the internet, we have books,
uh-huh,
we have you know trainings you can go to, and you just do it on your own. And some
yeah,
are free, some are not free,
mm,
and you decide what's best for you. So like for me this summer, about 2 or 3 years ago, I started my AI journey, just playing with AI, seeing what it's doing. But this year I decided, hey, I'm going to do three workshop courses and this other thing through Quality Matters to really figure out how can AI effectively be used as an instructor in terms of like discussion forums, rubrics, and
uh-huh,
curriculum. And I'm
uh-huh,
learning so much, right? Now, if I
right,
had not paid for that on my own, I would have lost out a wealth of knowledge that I would have never found out about if I hadn't paid for, right?
right.
That said, um, I will share some of that information with colleagues who want to hear about it. Those that don't, you know, um, you
Right.
know, but I think for me, you don't wait for somebody to give you what you need. Sometimes you just have to go out and get it
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. I like that perspective. You don't have to wait for somebody else to give you something that you need. You can go out
Yeah.
and get it yourself. So that
Yeah.
is a part of being true to yourself,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? I also
Yeah.
heard a theme around being prepared or preparation. You were,
Hmm.
preparation for the deaths.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right?
I call
Uh,
myself the death whisperer.
oh,
Seriously. I do. I do.
yeah, no, I hear you. But when you talk about preparation, you also said that that was something that helped you. You said that I was prepared for it. I had been preparing for it.
Yeah. And in your head you aren't fully prepared, but let me just give you this. In terms
Mhm,
of death, death
mhm.
is something that's going to happen regardless
Right,
of whether you want it to or not. You are
right,
either going to die before somebody or they're going to die before you. We're not waiting for people to rot and die, blah, blah, blah. But like if you know somebody is chronically ill, and chronically sick. And I'll use my dad as the example. My father, in 2009, I found him near death. Like if I had not come to his apartment 2 days later, he would have died. He was just dehydrated. I mean, it was terrible, right? But that said, when they took him to the ambulance, took him away, which I have no memory of the ambulance picking him up. Like all those kind of memories got pushed out the door. But I remember he got the diagnosis of having Parkinson's, and I knew that Parkinson's can do. People can live a long time with Parkinson's, or people can live a short time with Parkinson's. Now, judging by the state I found my father in, any rational person would realize that he's probably going to have a shorter run with Parkinson's, which he did. And what did I do for myself and my father? One, I made sure I spent as much time as I could with my father. I knew that at some point we wouldn't be able to go out to visit. So like go out for like a visit outside or whatever. So initially I would take him, he liked McDonald's. We go get a milkshake, or we drive around. And at some point I couldn't do that anymore. So I would continue, he wasn't diabetic. And I was like, okay, you can have as many sweets as you want. Every time I come and see you, you could eat a whole bag of cookies, because whatever you want. Right. But doing that and reading books with my dad about Parkinson's and doing that really prepared me that eventually he's going to lose his ability to feed himself, walk, speak, and then eventually one of his body systems will get in the way, and that's what will end his life. And that's ultimately what happened, is that he started during the pandemic that summer, he was put on a mush diet. He started having some trouble with swallowing. So they said he needed to go on a feeding tube. My dad was 6'3", loved to eat. That really wasn't going to work for him, right? So my brother, we put him on a feeding tube. It failed immediately. And my brother's like, well, let's try it. I said, John, don't try again. It failed for a reason, let's just, he does not, no human should have to be like this. So we put him on hospice. He was on hospice for about 3 weeks. No, 2. He was on hospice for 2 weeks, 13 days, just shy of 2 weeks. And interestingly enough, I used to kid with my dad, but I was serious. And I think my dad knew I was serious. I would say, Dad, when you're ready, I need a 2-week notice. He says, well, I don't know if I have control of that. I said, Dad, I just need a 2-week notice and I'll be okay. Like, that's all I need, right? And he literally, it was 13 hours and like just shy of 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've never seen a person who like no food, no water, because he had a strong heart. He was able to be okay. But my point is that my perspective on death and dealing with the preparation that you need to do helps me, because one thing that I read a lot about is that grieving is, you don't go through the grieving process like, oh, I'm done. Like, I'm done, finished, put it in a box. Grieving is forever. It comes in waves, it disappears, it shows up when you least expect it. And it's just a part of being human. And we don't just grieve people, we also grieve experiences and things as well. So that's where I think I was prepared, and the pandemic really, for me, I think for everybody, is the fact that everybody went through some form of grief at the same time. Now, some people were grieving an actual death from COVID. Some people were grieving things that were not related to COVID, but were a death. And some people were just grieving not being around people and having the experiences that they need. But it was like this fast course on grief, right? But we didn't know, most people didn't know that they were going through it. Yeah.
And it came suddenly, right? Like we
And it
didn't
came
know.
suddenly. But you know
It was
what? It didn't
unexpected.
come suddenly. So this is, I
Well,
always think about, this is what I think about. I think about the viruses that hit right before pandemic.
mhm,
So before COVID, you had H1N1, you had
yes.
Ebola almost hit the
Hmm.
US, swine flu, like you had
Yeah,
some things that could have been, um, you know, it was like, these are happening. You should pay
right.
attention.
But
But it's not happening to us,
people
so we're not
don't.
going to pay
Right.
it. Right. Right.
Right. Right.
Right. And then, so
Exactly.
then, COVID pops up in a few places and people are like, okay, but it's not happening to us. But the
Yeah.
one thing that we forgot is that people are so transient, taking vacations, visiting
Mm-hmm.
people. And because it landed during a season of when people spend the most time with each other indoors,
Hmm.
instant incubator. And that's what
Yes.
happened. That's what happened.
Interesting.
It's strange.
Yeah, I keep hearing the same recurring theme that it's like pay attention to
Yeah.
what's happening and to be realistic, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
although you were talking about this was a part of your career transition, but you were talking about the preparation of the teachers that we're going to have to
Hmm.
still teach and grieve. That
Yeah.
people were saying, she's going to pull through this, you're going to pull through this, when the reality was not for long.
Yeah. It's
And
kind of like, yeah,
uh-huh.
it's like now, like when I went through my teaching program, we didn't talk about school shootings, right? We didn't have a conversation about this is even possible, blah, blah, blah. Um, but now, as a professor, if when a school
Hmm.
shooting happens, I can't just ignore that, right? I
Hmm.
do have to check in with my students to see, hey, one, did you even see it on the news? Two, what are your thoughts? How are you feeling? Right? Because trying to teach somebody without the context, so like, okay, we're having uh, this training on active shooter. It's not the same thing if it's in context of like this happened in our neighborhood, and now let's have a conversation about
Now we
it.
have to get prepared, right?
Now we have to get
Exactly.
prepared, because
Hmm.
when it happens,
Hmm.
you're going to be one of three people. You're going to be the person who either fights the shooter. You're going to be either the person who's protecting the kids and barricading them where they need to be, or you're going to be a person. Oh, I should be four. You're going to be the person
Right.
that just, why is it there's three hide that just
Mhm.
hides and then just falls apart, like, and someone has to lift you up and put you in the closet because you won't move.
Yeah.
Um, and so, not to say that you can prepare for either of those choices because you don't know who you are, right? You don't know what's in you. But I
True.
think
Until it's tested. Yes.
until it's
Yes.
tested, right? But your awareness of things can help you make a better choice.
There you
Can
go.
help you make a better choice.
I like that. Yeah, the awareness helps you make a better choice, which is a practical tip right there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and I want to bring this back around to how these things that you've been talking about connect to being one's true self, right?
Yeah.
Because what I'm hearing, and tell me if I'm wrong, you're saying, hey, I think in my being my true self, I prepare.
Yeah. My true self is a preparer. It's a
Uh-huh.
person who's very truthful, right? So I'm the
Mhm.
kind of person, if you do need to hear some bad news and you need to hear it in a loving way, it's probably come to me.
Ah,
When if you're in a situation and everyone is thinking, oh, let's all agree, I might be the little outlier. Well, maybe
yeah. Like
let's
this
think
me.
about, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
I might be the chicken sticking their neck out.
Hmm.
But for me, being my true self is probably, I think I can testament. Let me knock on some wood,
Okay.
a lot of wood right now. Um, but it's the one thing that has kept me healthy, being my true
Kept
self.
you. healthy. I love
Yeah,
that.
so the times that I'm not being my true self is when I
Mhm.
start having those symptoms like GERD and um eye ticks and things like that.
Mhm.
And those are warning signs. They're warning signs that your body's out of whack, your stress response is out of whack, your cortisol is up, and you need to make a change. That change is either change your attitude, change your location, or change um, your perspective, kind of thing, right? But it's necessary to ward off whatever's supposed to happen to you. So, like for me, I know in my life, I could have a heart attack, but my heart right now is in good shape, right? Surprisingly,
Right.
right. And when I remember the first time I went to a cardiologist after I had gotten COVID, I was having some post-COVID symptoms, and my doctor is very good at, let's just run all the tests. And I was like, thank you. I was like, thank you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Let me see my baseline. Thank you.
Right.
And so I had this echo, and then, the echo was like, your heart looks good. You just have a little sludge, which is typical for, people at 50 or so. So I was thinking, wow, I have all that McDonald's, all that, like, like, but I realized I must have been doing something
Mhm.
different to change my potential outcome, right? The,
Yes.
the, I just must have been doing something different that changed my outcome.
Yeah.
And so when you're your true self, you feel relaxed, you feel
Mhm.
your skin looks good,
Mhm.
you just feel rested. When you're not feeling that way, you got to make a change. Like, so for me, I've been known to be like, stay up real late every night, like, and I
Okay.
know at 52, you cannot do that
Yeah,
anymore.
anymore.
No more. So,
Somebody needs to tell my mama.
so when I come back, and I'm back on
Mhm.
my regular grind, I'm going to be like, power down the
Mhm.
phone, power down the computer. Don't
Mhm.
grade at 10 o'clock at night. It's not necessary, right? You can grade at a specific time and it's okay. You
Mhm.
don't have to return that email like that. So people can
Right.
wait. They won't die. Um, and then just making sure that my true self, where I feel my best, is when I'm with spending time with people I love. So making sure I spend time with my husband, my friends that I don't get to see that often, and just making sure I do that. So I think
Yes.
that's important. A lot of people, when they go into leadership roles, I feel like, and this has always been my like aversion for leadership
Mhm.
roles, is that you sell your soul. Like
Mhm.
you have this mask. Like no one really knows who you are,
Art.
right? Because you have this, like, this is what a leader is, right? And for some jobs, yeah, but again, people know that you're giving a mask because the
Right.
mask always slips every once in a while. And then
Mhm.
people are looking at you like, are you okay?
Right.
Has something happened?
Right.
You
Or, I
know?
mean, sometimes people also just show up inauthentically, right? So
Yeah,
things
yeah.
just don't
It's
work.
not
They don't
matching.
make sense because it's not really who you are. And
Yeah.
you could be responding out of triggers, right? Or
Hmm.
habits that you've developed over the years for other reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
it
like
just doesn't work well in community. Yes. Go
just
ahead.
doesn't work. It's like for me, you can see my little lovely, lovely streak.
Mhm.
It's like all of a
Mhm.
sudden you saw jet black hair. You'd be like, Cherie, what's up? What is this? What is this? Right? What?
I love it.
Right? Because I've had gray hair for a long time and it's
Okay.
getting, I mean, by the time I'm 60, it'll be all white, or
Okay.
grayish or whatever color it's going to be.
Mhm. Well,
But
I
I'm
love that.
not, but that's part of aging for me. I don't need to dye my hair when it's part of aging, you
Right.
know?
Mhm.
It's just,
I'm
you
with
just
you.
can't.
I'm with you.
It's
And I
just
just
part of
want to
being
say,
older.
yes, I want to say for the record, okay, because I love gray hair. And I do dye my hair, but I dye it not to cover gray. Like I've always,
Oh no, you don't have
no,
you
no,
don't
no.
listen. No.
I want to tell you, no, I just want to tell you
Yeah.
something. No, I just thought about it because I was like,
Yeah.
I actually like this two-tone hair. I just like
Yeah.
it, but I
Yeah.
can't wait for my gray to come in. Like I've been
Yeah.
since I was younger. Actually, some
Yeah.
of my younger siblings and cousins had gray hair well before I even had a strand. And now
Yeah.
mine's
Yeah.
still coming in so slowly. I'm just like, come on. Because
And
I
then
really,
remember,
mhm,
it's genetics. It's genetic.
yeah.
Some people never get gray hair. They legitimately don't get gray
Uh-huh.
hair, or very, like my husband, he's just starting to get some gray hair.
Okay.
And he's 14 years older than me. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, well, we're not gonna go too far on that tangent. I just wanted to say
Yeah, yeah.
that,
But my point was is that, like, if a person is known for gray hair
right.
and then all of a sudden they switch,
Yes,
it's kind of like,
something's not right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like I haven't relaxed my hair since I think 2008.
Okay.
Just 2007,
Mhm.
2008. I think I saw good hair and I was like, you know what? Mm-mm.
I'm done with
That
this, right?
can melted in the lye. No.
I
But if all of a
know
sudden I started straightening my hair with a relaxer, that would be like, sure,
yeah,
you're not doing that for you. You're
what's
doing that
going
for
on.
what's going
Right.
on.
That's
Yeah.
right. Well, I do want to turn in the few minutes that we have left. I want to turn to this um how you help support teachers, right? Because you said, or educators of any type in their leadership development, because you said that you're passionate about that, right? Like
Yeah.
passionate about teachers as leaders. And I want to know how you connect that to our topic today, right? Like
Yeah.
being true to oneself through transitions.
One thing, one thing I always instill in my students is that, for some of us, we will stay just a teacher, right? But
Mm,
we really need, if we really want to change education, we
mm,
need teachers either to become a teacher leader, so they have a hybrid role,
mhm,
or they actually become the leaders of these schools and institutions and
mhm,
organizations. Because as we have seen at all levels of education, so early childhood, in early learning programs, in elementary schools, well, not so much in elementary schools. Usually, elementary and high school, they typically have somebody that was a teacher that moves into a leadership role.
okay.
But higher ed, certainly, there's plenty of people that have never taught extensively who are in leadership roles. Um, the Department of Ed, we've seen that happen. And then just in other organizations where you've seen a person who's not been on the ground, or boots on the ground kind of thing. And it's important that we have teachers being in this process, because teachers really are learning the trends of what's really, really going on, right? So, like, for me, I've been out of the classroom in the sense of a preschool classroom or an elementary school classroom for quite some time. I can't be the leader expert always on that, because I'm not the person in that seat, right? I don't
Right.
know what it feels like to be in a setting where you describe some of the middle schools or high schools where kids are just talking back at kids. I didn't experience that as a student. I never saw that ever, ever, ever happen. But now that does happen in some schools for various reasons. We're not going to blame who, but it's just it happens. And, like, we need people who know how to deal with the problems that are at hand.
Mhm,
Because the issue we have now is that leaders really need to take care of those that are underneath them, right? So, and for you to be able to take care of someone who's underneath you, you really have to know what their shoes are like. And I
mhm,
mean, really know what their shoes are like. Not what you think that it's like, but what it actually is like, right? And
mhm,
anyone that's been an educator at any level, teachers across the board, except for a few of us, are not paid well. They're
mhm.
not paid for all the things they do. And it really comes down to not truly understanding the job. That's why we have this teacher crisis now, is that, the pay has been not where it needs to be. It's not meeting inflation rates. People can't pay their rents. They can't even buy food, let alone have a family. But you want them to teach. So also, me personally, just my personal experience of leaders, the best leaders that I've ever had were ones that had been teachers who had actually been in the classroom. When I talk to students, and their experience with leaders, the leaders who really had spent some time in the seat of where they were, and never forgot. So that's the piece. You could sit in the seat, but if you forgot what it felt like to sit in the seat, then it's not going to work. So I'm a big proponent of moving people along the continuum, and I live that. Like, I'm living proof. I was a preschool teacher with no leadership other than being the lead teacher of a classroom. That's it, and then I moved within the period of time into some leadership roles. And I always tell them it's a quick journey. It's not like you have to wait decades and decades and decades. It can be a fairly quick journey, but the key is being prepared for it.
Go. Here's that word.
Being prepared for preparation. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And so what are some, I don't know, some quick tips that you can share with people about, about that preparation? Yeah.
I think number one, you at least 5 days a week, at least
Okay.
5. Dedicate some time to learn about your craft, whatever your chosen craft is, or whatever craft you want to be. That can be simply listening to some podcasts. It can be reading a quick article. It could be reading a book chapter. Knowledge is king, and it's always changing. So if you're one of those people that, like, you heard about this AI thing, but like you never decided, hey, I'm just going to keep an eye on it, then you're like overwhelmed when it hits you, right? But preparation allows you to see the little glimpse. Oh, I keep seeing this article about this. Right? I keep seeing these words pop up in these types of articles. Let me do a little further investigation. So that's number one. Number two would be to make sure that you understand, I get this from my mother. You're going to have very few friends and a lot of acquaintances. Okay. And that is very true. That is very true. And Facebook, sadly, we're Facebook friends, we're Instagram friends. No, friends are when your parent dies, are they there? Friends are when you are sick, are they there? Friends are when you need to hear that hard conversation, they can give you that hard conversation. Acquaintances they're there for the joyfulness. They might be there for the misery too, but they're not going to be constant folks. So figure out who your tribe is. Who are those people that are going to be there for you and your go-to people? They don't necessarily have to be people that you see every day, right? You might talk to them every day, but you might not see them every day. I have several great friends that I don't see physically because we're in different locations and we're moving around all the time. So just knowing that. 3, be able to be by yourself. Learn to be by yourself. Solitude is not a bad thing. It's actually, it's when you hear yourself. You hear the problem, you hear what's going on with you. And it can be actually peaceful. So like me, one of the reasons I get up early is because nobody else is up. It's quiet, except for the birds, who are my little background music, right? But it's peaceful. So learn to be by yourself, because for leadership, it will be sometimes very lonely. So you have to be able to be, you don't need, you need to be by yourself. And the last thing would be, don't get wrapped up in accolades, right? So a lot of times people want to be, I need a pat on the back every 10 seconds, every time I do something. Yay, 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 yay. Be intrinsically motivated. Whether you get the accolade or not, you're doing it because you want to do it and you know that it's going to impact someone who doesn't even realize it's going to impact them. And
Yeah.
that in itself is, and
Mhm.
I'll give you an example. I had someone a long time ago when she worked under me, and I was always on her, like, always say always on her, right? And I remember a couple of years later, she inboxed me on Facebook, and she thanked me. She said, "I just
Mhm.
want to thank you for all the times you were on me and really getting on me. And now I understand why." And I don't even remember what I said to her. I
Right.
have no idea. I don't even remember what I said to her. But that showed me that my leadership at the time had an impact in a positive way for her later on
Right.
in life. It didn't hit when I wanted it to, but it
Yeah.
certainly hit some later.
Right.
So
And that's what matters, right?
that's
That
what
it
matters.
hit.
That's what matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get wrapped up in seeing it ourselves
Yeah.
when we
Sometimes you don't
mentor.
see it.
Right.
Yeah.
Listen, people in education, I hope, understand that, right? Like
Yeah.
the many of us will not see the benefit of the work that we did in real time,
Mm-mm.
besides
Mm-mm.
maybe advocacy work that we do, but what we're teaching and learning, teaching people what they're learning from us through us is going to
Mm-hmm.
pay off in the long term, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
as a college educator, well, in teacher education, there is some more immediate payoff when people get their first jobs, but
Yes.
right out of college. But there's so many other things we're teaching people and helping support them through
Mm-hmm.
as they learn to be adults,
And just
young
human.
adults, right? And being human, that we will see the results of later on. I've been a little nostalgic lately because some of my students, I mean, I have students who are in their 50s now. Because I
Mm.
started really young. I was like the age of my students. And then,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you know, over time, but there are some that feel like I just saw them yesterday and they're in their
Mm-hmm.
30s, right? Like, but we met each other, it was over 13 years ago, and they're in their
Yeah.
30s, starting
I
families
know.
and all kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
And having
Yeah.
adult issues. So I love that we know, and I think we're primed for that, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
everybody in every industry isn't, right? Like just
Yeah.
primed for understanding that. Uh, but I just wanted to recount what you shared. I heard, hey, here's some practical tips to one, staying true to yourself and really thriving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so
Mm-hmm.
preparation, really stay up on your craft. And yes, in these days, in the late 2020s, actually it was before this, but we
It's crazy
really
that
have
it's
to.
the late 2020s already.
Yes, in the late 2020s, we really have to stay up on the changes that are occurring. It's
Yeah.
natural to feel some resistance at first.
Yeah.
When the first time I heard about AI, I heard about it from someone who was a land administrator, was at a conference, and she scared me. Like she was like, beware. So when
Yeah.
it came, I didn't know what to do with it. I just remember my good friend said, beware. you
Yeah.
know,
And
and
there, look, it's legit. There are some awareness, right?
but
There's some
yeah,
ramifications that we have to be aware of. Absolutely.
right. So, and I get it. I don't even know, but listen, I have recently made a video with using AI. I mean, not me personally, someone did it for me, but I'm using those tools now in
Mm-hmm.
ways that I didn't know that I would be able to. I
Yeah.
was, one of those people who, yeah, like, make this more concise at first. To
Yeah.
now understanding we can use it, for videos and in our classrooms
Mm-hmm.
and so on and so forth. The thing is, um, retooling, reskilling is so important, right? Even if you get something in your inbox every day that keeps you aware of the trends.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Yeah.
know what's happening. I've seen people literally lose like a 30 after 30-year career
Mm-hmm.
because of changes in technology. There was no job for them,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
nothing, because it literally disappeared. So
Mm-hmm.
preparation is really key now.
Preparation is really, and it, you know, the prep is not like you have to spend hours and hours on the prep. You're talking about, you know, 15 to 30 minutes of your day.
Yes.
You know, really
Yeah.
we could do an hour because if we get rid of all the social media and watching CNN and Fox News
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff, you
Yeah.
have an hour that you
That's
can
right.
just use for, you do have an hour for prep. You just use it for
That's
stuff
right.
that's not preparing you for anything.
That's right. That's right. Excellent. Yes. And you said, hey, figure out your tribe, your real tribe, right? Like
Yeah.
you're not worried
Yeah.
about the people whose opinions don't really matter. Uh, although so
Yeah.
many people do, right? That's something that
Yeah.
can shift.
Yeah.
And this is not new because of social media, it's just amplified
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
of how the access that we have to other people's opinions on
Yeah.
social
Yeah.
media. Three, you said learn to be by yourself
Yeah.
and hear what's going on with you. I can tell you for sure, Cherie, that it has been in those moments. I was alone with God, though, but I will say
Mm-hmm.
alone, no other distraction, when major life decisions were made that
Mm-hmm.
served me well. It
Yeah.
was not in the midst of distraction, listening to somebody
Mm-mm.
else,
Right.
getting insight from anything else. So, literally, in the silence,
Mm-hmm.
I have my greatest insights.
Yeah. And we
I,
need quiet now. We
yes,
have
we
so
do.
much going like this. We need time where we're just quiet.
Yes, we always needed it.
Yeah.
I would say we always needed it. I learned it from my Quaker school experience.
Mm-hmm.
So grateful for that. Did not appreciate it when I had it, but
Yeah.
understand it so much better now. And
Yeah.
finally, be intrinsically motivated, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
Cherie nor I can tell you what that means, right?
Right. It's
What in,
personal.
right? It is very personal. Like what motivates, intrinsically motivates you to have the impact that you want to have on this world,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that what you were saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, intrinsic, like you have to, although people can prepare you for to be intrinsically motivated, you ultimately have to choose to be.
Right.
So if you find yourself always chasing carrots or the shiny thing, you're
Okay.
not, and you're only, it's always on the outside. You're
Okay.
not, you're struggling a little bit with intrinsic motivation. And it's
Yes.
not that tangibles are a bad thing, but they can be removed. They can be
True.
taken away.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they
So when they're
can.
taken away, what are you going to do?
Thank you. That is a great way to put it, right? So,
Yeah, they can be
what
taken
is it
away.
that cannot be taken away from you?
It's you.
That motivates you is you.
It's
Yes.
you.
And so just plain and simply understanding who you are, what you need, that is a perfect segue. I love that. Right? Like what you in this life really, really want, who you were created to be is beyond
Mm-hmm.
the things. It's what
Yeah.
you really want to experience because of the things or because of even like an outside motivator you said was getting accolades, right? Like getting
Mm-hmm.
recognition from others. I know I struggled with that for years. Like as much as
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to, like literally wanted to just be in the cut and do things because they were the right thing to do, the good thing to do, you know, to help grow people. When someone else would get recognition for the same thing, I felt a little twinge.
Yeah,
I felt a
it's
little,
still, look, it's still gonna hurt,
yeah,
but like if you were to sit in that person's space, you probably
yeah.
realize they are not always, not all, I shouldn't say all people, but some people
Mhm.
are not always being their true self. It's
Right.
just,
Oh,
you know what I mean?
certainly.
So, and the thing is, when you're done with your career, when you're retired, or, when it is at the end of your life and it's the funeral, what are people going to say about you? Are they
Yes,
going to say
that's what
about your
matters.
accolades? No, they're going to say about the experiences and the relationships that they had with you. Not
That's
what
right.
you did, but what the experience that you gave them.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Cherie. This has been
Mhm.
phenomenal. Thank you so
Yes.
much for being so generous with your time, your expertise. Is there a way for people to find you, contact you after this episode?
Probably LinkedIn is probably the best place to
Okay.
reach me, because that's the most public facing. You can see, and you can just message me, or
Yep.
ask to connect. And then I
Excellent.
am on Facebook and Instagram, but that's probably, if you want to get a lot of information, it's probably LinkedIn.
Okay. And I know you being a little humble about your podcast. You want to share where they
Well,
can
you know
find
what? That goes
them?
on and off. That, I feel like that's my personal diary.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, like
That other
I
people
do.
can hear
They
your
can
personal
hear. So
diary.
like, and it's contingent on whether I have time. So if I had more time and I was actually dedicating more time to it, I would definitely give it accolade. But there, if you Google me, there are some podcasts floating out there on various topics. And
Yeah.
they usually are on books. They usually are on situations that are occurring. And you could find them mostly on Spotify, is what I was using before. Some of them may be floating on TikTok and things like that.
Oh, okay.
TikTok is where you go to get like the giggles, because that's where I just act silly. So if you need
I
a good
love it.
laugh, you'll see some good
I love
dancing
it.
there.
I love it. Well, I have gone to your podcast to listen to your analysis of some of the books and actually, excuse me, help me make some decisions about books that I was going to purchase.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
think, and
so,
that,
mhm,
yeah, it's one thing I do want to pick up more, but I think I have to get more targeted with my reading, because I'm one of those readers that reads multiple books at the same time, multiple
okay.
formats at the same time. So to really do a podcast on a book, you need to just read the book.
Right, exactly. Okay.
You know what I mean? But one of my goals this year is to start reading books, just like,
One at a
because
time.
yeah, at least one or two at a time. If you saw my house, there's so many books there that are, it's ridiculous. And then you have my Kindle and all that good stuff. So
Yes. Okay. Wow.
yeah,
I can imagine. I thought I had a lot, but it feels like you might have more. Well, I
yeah.
want to,
I don't have many things, but I have a lot of books.
yes, I
So
hear that.
that's,
And they're like gold to people like
yeah,
me. I love it.
yeah, yeah,
So I want to thank you and thank everyone who stopped by to listen to Rooted to Thrive. And my hope is that not from a place of perfection, but trying to be
Mhm.
perfect, but just from a place of wanting to see good happen in this world, that
Mhm.
this podcast helps pour in to any and everyone who will listen. We ask you to share these episodes with someone who it might resonate, somebody who pops in your mind when you hear a particular episode. And please do subscribe. Thank you for joining us on Rooted to Thrive.